Did GloRilla really steal the phrase all natural? Number BBL? Or is Slim the body last just chasing clout with a six-figure lawsuit? And in a shocking twist, did a woman's final Facebook post predict her own death? This video is packed with drama, betrayal, and chilling truths you won't believe. Stay tuned because you need to hear every second of this. Alright y'all, buckle up because GloRilla just found herself in some hot legal water. A woman who goes by the name Slim the Body is coming for her with a lawsuit hand. It's all over a lyric. Slim, who has a track called Natural, is claiming that GloRilla jacked her signature line, all natural, no BBL, and used it in her own song, Never Find. According to Slim, that line isn't just a lyric, it's part of her brand. She's been using it in her music and plastering it all over her videos as a kind of personal tagline. So when she heard it pop up in GloRilla's track, she didn't see it as a coincidence, she saw it as theft. Now she's demanding accountability, saying her words were taken without credit, and she's ready to let the courts handle it. The line between inspiration and imitation just got a whole lot blurrier, and this one might get messy.
Go. And I tried. I really did. I know online y'all know them as Frenchman and Duchess, but to me, I know them as Shamarcus and Zaria. With that being said, I want to clear a few things up about my cousin, because at the end of the day, it needs to be said. All I keep hearing online is Oodie this, Oodie this, Oodie this, Oodie this, Oodie this. Let's clear something up. First of all, my cousin's name is not Oodie. It's O.B. Okay? Let's start there. Secondly, y'all paint this narrative as if it was some type of down low situation going on. And what I want to let y'all know is, first of all, Obi got bitches, okay? I'm going to just say that. He was not a part of the community. This is not no DL situation. I also want to say this because the narrative that's being painted is not right. First of all, my cousin is deceased, so rest in peace to him. But I want y'all to understand a few things about our family. We got some serious steppers over here. And when I say steppers, I'm not talking about the stuff y'all see on the internet where they posting up. No, I mean, we got them real gangsters that move in silence, okay? Everybody sitting here trying.
First up, GloRilla is being hit with a copyright infringement lawsuit by an artist named Slim the Body. Slim claims that GloRilla didn't just borrow her phrase, all natural, number BBL for her song Never Find, but also lifted other creative elements like the melody and lyrical flow. And Slim isn't just looking for an apology. She's suing for 6 figures in damages, plus potential songwriting credit and royalties if the court rules in her favor. But here's the catch. Copyright law is very particular. It typically doesn't protect short phrases, catchphrases, or slogans no matter how catchy they are. If Slim's case relies only on that tagline, she might walk away empty-handed. Whether she wins or not will depend on whether the judge agrees that GloRilla took more than just a few words, like full compositional elements or distinctive melodies. So the big question remains, did GloRilla really copy her, or is Slim chasing a quick payday? Drop your thoughts in the comments down now. Onto a truly heartbreaking story out of Georgia. Zarya Carr, also known online as Duchess Dior, and her husband, Shamarcus Carr, known as the Frenchman, had what many called a toxic and volatile relationship. They lived in Georgia, shared 2 young children, and recently welcomed a new baby. But behind closed doors, their relationship was plagued by alleged abuse and repeated infidelity on both sides. Things escalated to a tragic climax on June 14th. The couple went live on social media for over an hour, airing their dirty laundry in front of thousands of viewers. They exposed secrets, traded accusations, and fueled speculation about violence and betrayal. But what made things even more disturbing was a Facebook post Zarya made just hours earlier, pleading, "I need help, before I lose my life or freedom. My kids need me." Later that same night, around 9:30 p.m., police found Zarya deadshot in her home. Shamarcus fled the scene, and by the time authorities caught up to him in Wayne County, it was too late. He had taken his own life. But the controversy didn't end there. During that final live video, Zarya brought up a man named Oodie, allegedly Shamarcus's close friend who had passed away under suspicious circumstances. She hinted that Shamarcus might have had something to do with Oodie's death, a claim that sparked outrage and fear. Though he was never charged, People believe that Zarya speaking Obi's name may have sealed her fate, whether knowingly or not. Clips from the live show, Schmarkus's demeanor shift the moment she said Obi's name. He grew quiet, visibly angry, and many viewers felt the tension escalate in real time. To add another layer, Obi's cousin has since spoken out publicly, further complicating the narrative and intensifying the emotional toll this situation has taken on everyone involved. This entire tragedy has left many questions and broken hearts in its wake. It's a devastating reminder of how deep emotional wounds, toxic relationships, and untreated trauma can lead to unimaginable consequences. What's truly disturbing about this whole situation isn't just the fallout, it's the cold, calculated way it all seems to have been orchestrated. From the moment the first whispers surfaced, from the way certain names were dropped at just the right time, to how anonymous details made their way into the hands of people who shouldn't have known anything. It was too precise, too well-timed. We kept saying to ourselves, this had to be an inside job. There's just no other way to explain how deep the knowledge went. How could someone on the outside know exact locations, timestamps, and intimate dynamics? How could they describe the look on Obi's face that night, or the tone of Schmarkus's voice in the hours leading up to it, unless someone close to close was feeding the story? And that's when everything started to shift. The reality hit harder than we expected. Schmarkus always knew he was a snake. Even before the rumors and the accusations, before the lies got too tangled to track, there was something in him that didn't sit right. He always walked with a kind of guarded arrogance, like a man who feared exposure more than he feared consequences. He moved like someone who had something to hide, and now, in the harsh light of everything that's come to pass, it's clear what that was. He lived with the knowledge that if the truth ever came out about his alleged involvement in what happened to Obi, my cousin, my blood, there would be a price to pay, and not just a price in this world. Not just legal consequences, or street justice. We're talking about a reckoning with God himself. A spiritual debt that no amount of manipulation, denial, or performance could ever cancel out. While was out here pillow talking with Zarya, whispering sweet nothings into her ear, pretending to be her protector, he seemed to forget he had his own skeletons rattling loudly in the background. He forgot that deceit doesn't die quietly, that every lie has an expiration date. And the most tragic part of all of this, it's not just about the betrayal of Obi, or the secret role Schmarkus may have played in events that still haunt our family. It's what he did to Zarya, the woman who stood by him, defended him, and tried to see the good in him when everyone else had already given up. Zarya went through hell. Schmarkus wasn't just emotionally manipulative, he was cruel, violent, controlling. He isolated her, shamed her, blamed her for things beyond her control. Anything he deemed disrespectful became grounds for punishment, and over time, she became a shadow of herself. But here's what so many people forget. When Obi was alive, that kind of abuse didn't fly. Obi was a lot of things: bold, brash, sometimes reckless, but he didn't tolerate harm, especially not against women. He was the kind of man who would show up, no questions asked, if he heard someone was being mistreated. And Schmarkus knew that. He knew as long as Obi was breathing, there were limits he couldn't cross. Because Obi would have stepped in. He did step in more than once. That's why the timing of everything is so suspect. Obi's death wasn't just a tragedy, it shifted power. It removed the one person who had the guts to call Schmarkus out publicly, without fear. And suddenly, in the aftermath, Schmarkus was free to do as he pleased. No more accountability. No more resistance, just unchecked ego and unresolved rage aimed at the people closest to him. And Zarya, she bore the brunt of that transformation. The bruises may have faded, but the trauma runs deep. She stayed quiet for years, afraid of what speaking out might bring. But even silence has a limit. Now, people are starting to listen. They're putting the pieces together. They're realizing that this wasn't just a personal falling out or a messy breakup. This was a pattern. A system of manipulation, abuse, and betrayal that spanned years and ruined lives. And the saddest part? There are still people defending Schmarkus, still people who say we don't have proof, or that's just rumors. But they weren't in the room when Zarya cried herself to sleep. They weren't there when Obi told me he didn't trust that man. They weren't there when the truth started leaking out. One painful drip at a time. At this point, the silence is complicit. The truth deserves to be spoken even if it's ugly. Especially if it's ugly. Because if we don't tell it, who will? Looking back, everything starts to make sense now, not just in fragments, but in full, painful clarity. The puzzle pieces that once felt too disjointed to interpret are finally clicking into place. And when you see it all laid out, it becomes impossible to deny the chilling truth. Zarya was terrified. Every move she made, every word she spoke, every pause in her voice was coded with survival. She wasn't just avoiding conflict, she was trying to stay alive. She couldn't reach out to my family. Not because she didn't trust us, but because she did. Because she knew exactly what would happen if we found out the truth. If we learned what Shamarcus was really doing to her, how he was isolating her, gaslighting her, threatening her, behind closed doors, there wouldn't be any conversations or second chances. It would have escalated instantly. There would have been confrontations, calls made, people showing up at doors, and in her heart, she knew it could have ended in even more tragedy. But that's the tragic irony, things had already escalated. He had already crossed too many lines. The bruises, the emotional damage, the manipulation, the threats, he had already dragged her through hell. She was living under a slow-burning fire, pretending like everything was normal because that was the only way she could keep some semblance of peace. But when she went live, when she brought up Oodie, even though she tried to soften it by calling him Oodie, everyone watching felt the shift. The moment she said that name, the tension in the room changed. Her energy changed. Shamarcus's expression changed. And everyone watching in real time could sense it. That was the turning point. She didn't even have to say much, just the mention of Oodie's name carried weight. Because people know who Oodie was. He wasn't just my cousin, he was a force, a protector, someone who refused to stand by while others suffered. He stood up for women, spoke out when things were wrong, and made it very clear that if anyone laid a finger on someone he loved, there would be consequences. And Shamarcus knew that. He knew Oodie represented a threat to everything he tried to control. And when Zarya slipped and brought up his name Evan, in a coded way, he knew what that meant. He knew the world was watching. That if the truth started leaking out, there'd be no way to hide anymore. His past, his involvement, his guilt, it would all come crashing down. And what makes it worse, what still makes my blood boils, the fact that this man had the audacity to show up at Oodie's funeral. He stood there in a suit, hands folded, fake tears welling in his eyes, like he was mourning a loss he had nothing to do with. Like he wasn't allegedly part of the very setup that cost Oodie his life. It wasn't grief. It was a performance. A calculated move to clear suspicion. A slap in the face to every single one of us who loved Oodie. That's not just betrayal, that's evil. That's cold, unrepentant malice, wrapped in performative grief. The kind of deception that twists your stomach when you think about it. While we were crying over the casket, he was already spinning the story in his head. Already planning how to keep control. How to silence the next person who might speak up. People online want to dissect Zarya's behavior during that live. They say she was smiling, that she didn't look scared, that she seemed calm. But what they don't understand, what they fail to recognize, is that that was fear. That was her trauma response. That nervous laugh. That high-pitched voice. Those fake smiles, that wasn't joy. That was survival. Zarya had learned, over time, how to code switch under threat. Every time she felt things turning, every time she sensed danger in his tone, or saw a flicker in his eyes, she'd tie up her hair, throw on sneakers, keep her phone close. She was always ready to run. Because deep down, she knew. She always knew what was coming. She had lived through it before. She'd learned how to mask her fear, how to de-escalate, how to avoid the blow-ups, and that was her trying to keep herself alive in front of an audience just in case she didn't make it out. And tragically, she didn't. The truth that no one wants to say aloud, but everyone feels in their bones, is this. He wasn't going to let her walk away. She had seen too much. She knew too much. Her spirit had started to resist him, and he couldn't control her anymore, not in the way he used to. That's why there was no call for help. That's why there was no ambulance on the scene. No 911. No police. Just silence. Just delay. Just time wasted while her life slipped away. He made sure she wouldn't survive. People want to argue logistics. They want to debate timelines and second-guess the signs. But I don't need a courtroom to tell me what my gut already knows. Zarya didn't just die, she was silenced. And her silence screams louder than anything else in this story. Every missed call, every deleted message, every closed door, it all points in one direction. And now, all we're left with is a truth too heavy for most people to carry. And a loss that burns more deeply with each passing day. The kind of truth that doesn't just sit in your chest, that settles in your bones. It stays with you in the quiet moments, in the unanswered questions, in the flashbacks of what could have been done differently. And for those of us who loved Zarya and Obi, who saw the way their spirits lit up a room, who felt protected in their presence, the grief isn't just personal, it's generational. It's the kind of pain that rewrites family lines. It shapes the way we love, trust, forgive, and respond to danger. But if nothing else comes from this, if justice fails again, if people keep sweeping it under the rug, if the system drags its feet like it always does, let it be this. We will speak for Zarya. We will speak for Obi, because they both deserved better. And no matter how many masks were worn, how many stories were rewritten, how many reputations were protected through silence and fear, the people who tried to erase them will never know peace. This isn't about revenge, it's about truth. It's about honoring lives that were stolen, not lost, not faded, not simply taken too soon. Stolen, ripped away by a man who manipulated, threatened, and twisted everything good around him until all that was left was control and power. He made people question themselves. He made Zarya doubt her instincts. He made Obi out to be too loud, too protective, too much, because he knew Obi couldn't be bought, couldn't be silenced. But what he didn't count on was that even in death, Obi's name still echoed, still brought fear to his enemies, still stood for justice. And as painful as it is to say, in a twisted way, it's better that he took himself out. Because justice was coming. One way or another, if not through the system, which we all know is painfully slow, often biased, and built to protect men like him, then from the streets, from the same world he thought he controlled, from the families he underestimated. He knew how this worked. My family isn't loud. We don't make threats online. We don't play for attention. We move in silence. We let people talk while we observe. We let the internet speculate while we gather the truth. And he knew that. That fear he carried, that tension in his shoulders every time someone said Obi's name, every time someone hinted at Zarya's suffering, that wasn't paranoia, that was awareness. Awareness that the walls were closing in. He knew there were only two outcomes, either jail or worse. Either he'd be facing a courtroom filled with Zarya's tear-stained family and Obi's furious crew, or he'd be caught in a place where no cameras could protect him, where apologies meant nothing. He made his choice. He chose the one exit he could still control. But let's be very clear about something. This was never some petty lover's quarrel. This wasn't a relationship gone sour, or to toxic people who couldn't make it work. That narrative is dangerous. That narrative protects abusers and silences victims. No, this was a deeply manipulative, violent man who got caught up in things he could no longer hide. A man who wore charm like armor and used silence as a weapon. A man who groomed people to believe he was misunderstood while he isolated, harmed, and destroyed the people who got too close. And the moment Zarya said Obi's name out loud, even if she tried to soften it by saying Oodie, he knew. He knew the clock had run out, because saying Obi's name wasn't just an accident, it was a crack in the wall of lies. It was a signal. A moment of rebellion. The one thread that, if pulled, would unravel the whole story. She had been so careful for so long. She knew what to say, how to say it, when to smile, how to laugh at just the right moment so people wouldn't worry. But in that moment, whether it was intentional or a slip, she let the truth breathe. And he panicked. Because Obi's name is weight. Obi's name is memory, is accountability, is unfinished business. Saying his name reminded everyone that there was more to the story. That Zarya wasn't unstable like he wanted people to believe. That the tension wasn't just in her head. That the danger she hinted at was very real. And when people heard that name, they started paying attention. Not just emotionally, but strategically. People began reaching out. Screenshots were pulled. Messages were archived. Patterns were being uncovered. The shield of secrecy he relied on started crumbling. And instead of facing that reckoning, he took the only way out that didn't involve shame or handcuffs. But that doesn't make him a martyr. That doesn't make him misunderstood. It makes him guilty. It makes him a coward. Because while he left the world trying to rewrite the ending, we're still here carrying the weight of what he did. Piecing together what he tried to destroy. And sitting with the grief he caused. So now what? Where do we go from here? We keep speaking, we keep sharing Zarya's truth. We protect her name, we uplift her memory. We remind people that she wasn't just someone in the headlines, she was a daughter, a sister, a friend. We keep telling the world that Obi wasn't just another young black man taken too soon, he was a protector. A light, a soul who didn't back down from what was right. And we keep our eyes open for the next Shamarcus, because they don't. Always wear warning signs. Sometimes they come dressed in love. But real love doesn't destroy. The fight doesn't end with his exit. Because Zarya never got the justice she deserved. Obi never got the peace he earned. And until they do, we'll keep going. Quietly, relentlessly, together, because in the end, the truth doesn't die, just waits for the right moment to rise.